12 students snuck out for a midnight adventure. They thought it would just be laughter, marshmallows, and ghost stories. But what they found was an underground lab hiding something that should never have been awakened. Before we dive in, hit like, subscribe, share, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the rest of this horror series. Now, let's step into the dark together. The fire crackled in the clearing, throwing long shadows that twisted like monsters across the trees. 12 students huddled around the flames, their voices rising and falling with laughter and nervous energy. They weren't supposed to be out here, not at this hour, but rules meant nothing when curiosity and boredom took over. Tyler leaned back on his elbows, smirking at the others. Come on, guys. You really want to sit here all night, roasting marshmallows like kids? We're in the middle of the woods. Let's do something real, something we'll remember. His tone carried challenge, daring anyone to disagree. Jessica frowned, brushing a strand of hair from her face. We'll get caught. Mr. Howard does rounds. If he finds us gone... Relax, Jess, Marcus interrupted, grinning as he waved a marshmallow on a stick. The guy's so old he snores louder than we talk. He won't notice if we're gone for hours. He chomped the marshmallow and licked his fingers, unfazed. Emily sat pressed close to Sarah, her eyes wide and uncertain. I don't think we should. The forest is creepy at night. Ryan, flexing his shoulders, laughed loudly. That's the point, Em. Creepy makes it fun. We're not babies. His voice carried that reckless confidence that always got them into trouble. Ethan adjusted his glasses, flashlight clutched in hand. I read there are old military bunkers around here. Abandoned stuff. Probably dangerous, but kind of cool, too. See? That's what I'm talking about. Tyler stood, grabbing his backpack. An adventure. Something better than telling ghost stories like third graders. Who's in? One by one, most of the hands went up. Hesitant for some, eager for others. Jessica muttered under her breath, but eventually stood too. Even Ben, the most reluctant of the group, shuffled to his feet with a muttered curse. The forest swallowed their laughter as they moved, flashlights bobbing through the trees. Minutes turned to an hour, the trail fading into overgrown brush. Then Chloe hissed, "Wait, look!" The ground sloped into a half-hidden clearing where vines and roots covered a jagged stairwell. Rusted railings jutted up from the dirt like skeletal fingers. A stale wind rose from the depths, carrying the sharp stink of metal and rot. Tyler grinned wide. Jackpot! The rusted door groaned as Tyler shoved it open, the sound shrieking into the night like a warning. A gush of stale air rushed out, heavy with dust and chemicals. The students gagged and covered their noses, but the thrill of the unknown drove them forward. Tyler swept his flashlight inside, revealing a narrow stairwell spiraling downward. Smells like death, Claire whispered, hugging herself. Her voice was barely audible over the echo that drifted back up from the depths. Don't be dramatic, Ryan muttered, forcing bravado into his tone. Still, even he hesitated before setting his foot on the first step. The metal groaned under his weight, a hollow sound that carried far too long. One by one they descended. Their flashlights cast shaky beams across cracked walls, graffiti scrawled in faded paint, and warning signs plastered with bold red letters. Biohazard, do not enter. Marcus snickered nervously. Cool decor, definitely a place for a rave. Emily whimpered softly. Sarah squeezed her hand and whispered reassurance, though her own eyes darted around nervously. Shadows seemed to shift with every step they took. At the bottom, the corridor stretched endlessly in both directions. Broken light fixtures dangled from the ceiling, flickering sporadically. Pools of dark liquid stained the cracked floor, the smell of rust and copper clinging to every breath. Ethan crouched by a smashed control panel, his fingers brushing across wires and shattered glass. "This place hasn't been touched in years," he murmured, fascination gleaming in his eyes. "But look at this tech. It's not military. It's something else." Jessica shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. "We shouldn't be here. This isn't adventure. It's trespassing. It's wrong." Her voice echoed in the vast silence, swallowed as quickly as it was spoken. "Too late to back out now." Tyler's grin didn't reach his eyes. He pushed forward, flashlight beam cutting into the dark. The others followed reluctantly, the line of students stretching like prey moving deeper into a predator's den. A sudden sound echoed, a sharp skitter like claws scraping metal. Everyone froze. Marcus tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. "Probably just a rat, right?" No one answered. The corridor widened suddenly into a cavernous hall, the ceiling lost in shadows. Flashlights flickered across broken consoles and shattered glass, their beams struggling to capture the size of the room. In the center stood a massive containment tank, cracked, murky liquid sloshing weakly inside. Metal braces hung loose, sparking faintly. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. This was for something alive." Her voice trembled as her eyes traced the jagged crack running down the glass. Marcus forced a laugh, though it rang hollow. "What'd they keep in there, Bigfoot?" He kicked a loose piece of metal across the floor, the clatter echoing too loudly. Ethan hurried to the nearest console, his fingers brushing dust away from glowing buttons still faintly pulsing with red light. "Systems are still online, barely. If I can just..." He tapped a switch. The tank hissed. A low groan rumbled through the room, deep enough to vibrate in their chests. The students stepped back, eyes wide, flashlights trembling in their hands. "Ethan, stop!" Jessica shouted, panic sharpening her tone. "Don't touch anything!" But the hiss grew louder. Cracks spiderwebbed across the tank's surface, liquid spraying in thin streams. The air grew heavy, electric, as if the room itself were holding its breath. Claire backed against the wall, whispering, "We need to go, right now." Her eyes darted toward the door, pleading with the others. Then came the first slam. Bam! Something massive hitting the inside of the glass. Everyone jumped, screams bursting in unison. Another slam followed, then another, the glass bulging outward under enormous force. And with a deafening crack, the glass split wide open. Pale liquid gushed across the floor, pooling around their feet. From within the shadows of the tank, a claw emerged, long, skeletal, glistening with slime. The creature was awake. The tank shattered like thunder, shards of glass exploding outward in a rain of jagged knives. The students screamed, shielding their faces as murky liquid drenched the floor. From the collapsing wreckage, the creature crawled forth, a towering, twisted silhouette dragging itself on elongated limbs. Its skin shimmered wet and raw, stretched taut over jutting bones, and its milky white eyes gleamed with hunger. It opened its mouth and unleashed a screech unlike anything human or animal, a sound that clawed at their ears and rattled their bones. Blood dripped out between its rows of jagged teeth as if it were already feeding. Ben stumbled backward, slipping on the slick floor. Oh God, what is that?" His voice cracked, rising into a scream. The beast moved with sudden, terrible speed. Its claws speared straight through Ben's chest before anyone could move. He gasped, eyes wide in disbelief, then screamed as he was lifted off the ground like a rag doll. Blood streamed down his body in sheets. Emily screamed and covered her eyes, Sarah pulling her close in terror. Tyler stood frozen, flashlight shaking wildly in his hand. The creature ripped Ben in two with a single sickening tear. The sound of snapping bones and tearing flesh echoed through the chamber, spraying gore across the cracked glass and pooling onto the floor. Jessica shoved Marcus, snapping him from his daze. "Run, now!" Her voice was raw with terror. The group scattered, chaos exploding in every direction, their footsteps pounding against wet steel, their screams colliding with the blaring alarms now shrieking through the lab. The creature dropped Ben's remains, its head twisting unnaturally as it sniffed the air, pale eyes scanning. Then, with another piercing screech, it bounded after the fleeing students, claws carving deep grooves into the walls as it gave chase. The hunt had begun. The alarms blared in pulsing red, bathing the corridors in a hellish glow. The students' footsteps thundered through the underground maze, their screams echoing off the walls. Behind them, the creature's guttural screeches grew louder, closer, its claws scraping sparks from metal as it pursued. "Split up!" Tyler shouted, his voice raw with panic. "It can't chase us all!" His plan wasn't strategy, it was desperation, but in their fear, no one argued. Tyler grabbed Jessica and Claire, dragging them down a hallway marked with faded numbers. "This way!" he barked. Their flashlights bobbed wildly, cutting through the strobing red. Ryan yanked Sarah and Emily toward another corridor, his jaw clenched, fury fueling every step. "Come on, stay close," he growled. Sarah stumbled, holding Emily, who sobbed uncontrollably, her small cries drowned by the alarms. Ethan, Chloe, and David bolted into a third passageway. Ethan tried to study the cracked signs on the walls even as he ran. "There has to be a control room, an exit map," he gasped. Chloe wasn't listening. Her fists were balled, ready to fight if cornered. Marcus lagged behind, tripping over broken glass and debris. "Wait! Don't leave me!" His voice echoed, desperation sharp in his throat. He turned the wrong corner, swallowed by the shadows, alone. The group's separation fractured their courage. Every corridor felt the same, cold steel walls smeared with dark stains, abandoned doors that rattled under unseen movements, vents hissing with unseen breath. Each group could hear the beast, though they couldn't tell where it was, sometimes above, sometimes behind, sometimes too close. Jessica panted, clutching her chest. "We shouldn't have split! It's going to pick us off!" Tyler cut her off harshly. "Shut up and moving!" His bravado was cracking, his eyes darting with barely contained terror. Somewhere in the labyrinth, a scream ripped through the halls. Marcus. It rose high, raw, and ended in a wet, tearing sound that echoed into silence. The students froze in their separate corners of the maze, hearts thundering, every one of them realizing the same truth. They weren't escaping. They were being hunted. Marcus stumbled into a storage chamber, his flashlight beam shaking as he slammed the door behind him. His chest heaved, sweat dripping down his forehead. He shoved a broken chair against the handle, whispering to himself, "It's fine, I'm fine. It's just some government lizard freak. Nothing I can't handle." His voice cracked at the lie. The room was pitch black save for the trembling beam of his flashlight. Dust choked the air, cobwebs clinging to rusted shelves lined with shattered jars. A steady drip, drip, drip echoed from somewhere deep inside the room, too rhythmic to ignore. "Water," Marcus muttered, trying to convince himself. But his flashlight swept across the corner, and the dripping grew louder. The beam landed on a stain, a dark pool spreading beneath something unseen above. Slowly, his eyes traced upward. A shadow moved. Before he could react, a massive weight dropped from the ceiling, slamming into him with bone-cracking force. His scream tore through the storage room, raw and piercing, as the flashlight spun across the floor and landed sideways, its beam casting jagged shapes against the walls. The creature loomed over him, its claws pinning his limbs like an insect trapped for dissection. Its mouth opened impossibly wide, teeth glistening with strands of saliva. Marcus thrashed wildly, sobbing now, his bravado shattered. "Please, please, I didn't even want to come!" The beast lowered its face close to his, breath hot and rancid, eyes pale and soulless. Then with one swift motion, its claws slid into his stomach. Marcus's scream cut to a gurgle as blood sprayed across the walls. The flashlight flickered once, twice, then went dark. Out in the corridors, the remaining students froze at the sound of Marcus's death scream, echoing faintly through the steel halls. It cut off too suddenly, leaving a silence heavier than the alarms. Emily clutched Sarah, trembling. Jessica closed her eyes, whispering, "He's gone." Tyler's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. Marcus was the second gone. The halls of the lab had claimed him, and the beast was still hungry. Tyler's group stumbled into a control chamber. Papers scattered across rusted desks, monitors cracked but still faintly glowing. Jessica grabbed one of the blueprints pinned to the wall, her hands shaking. "Look, emergency exits. There's another way out, but it's deeper. We have to push forward." Tyler slammed a fist against the desk. "Deeper? That's suicide!" But Claire stepped forward, pointing at the map. "It's this or nothing. The main entrance is sealed. We all saw it. If we stay here, we die." In another corridor, Ethan, Chloe, and David found a door labeled Armory. The electronic lock blinked red. "If I can bypass this, we'll have weapons," Ethan muttered, crouching to strip wires. Chloe grinned despite the tension. Finally, something to fight back with. David shook his head. "You don't fight a thing like that. You hide." Meanwhile, Ryan shoved open a door to a medical wing, dragging Sarah and Emily inside. The room was littered with overturned gurneys, rusted surgical tools scattered across the floor. Emily collapsed in sobs, clutching Sarah like a lifeline. "We're going to die. I know it. We're all going to die." Ryan's voice rose harshly. "Shut up. Stop crying and listen. If it finds us, we fight." The sound of claws scraping metal echoed down the hall, a slow, deliberate drag, like the beast wanted them to know it was coming. Sarah pressed her hand over Emily's mouth, tears streaming silently down her own cheeks. The door burst inward with a shower of sparks. The creature filled the frame, its pale eyes glowing in the flashing red light. Ryan roared and swung a metal pipe with all his strength, striking the monster's head. The clang was deafening, but the beast didn't even flinch. It snatched Emily first, claws sinking through her ribs. Her scream tore through the medical bay as the creature ripped her in two, blood splattering across the gurneys. Ryan swung again and again, wild and desperate, but the creature flung him into the wall with bone-cracking force. Sarah shrieked and crawled backward under a gurney, hands pressed over her mouth as Emily's lifeless halves hit the floor with a wet slap. The beast turned, sniffing the air, claws dripping crimson. Ryan coughed blood, trying to rise, his eyes wide with fury and terror. The alarms wailed, on, indifferent, as another student's body hit the cold steel floor. Ethan's trembling fingers sparked the lock wires, sweat dripping into his eyes. "Come on," he muttered. With a final spark, the panel clicked green. The heavy door groaned open, revealing rows of racks, rifles coated in dust, crates of ammunition, and shelves of knives and grenades sealed in glass cases. Chloe let out a sharp laugh, snatching a machete from the nearest rack. Finally, we're not helpless. She spun the blade with ease, adrenaline glinting in her eyes. David stepped inside slowly, scanning the shelves, his face pale. "Weapons won't matter. That thing isn't human. We're just poking a bear." Ethan grabbed a rifle and fumbled with the magazine. "Better than dying with nothing," he whispered. His voice shook, but there was steel beneath the fear. Chloe loaded another gun with brisk, confident motions, her defiance refusing to break. The sound came then, metal screeching as claws dragged across the walls outside. The three froze, staring at the armory door. Each scrape was deliberate, taunting, echoing louder than the alarms. "It knows," David whispered, panic cracking his voice. "It knows we're here." The steel door buckled inward with a thunderous bang. The second strike dented it. The third sent it flying across the room. The creature lurched inside, taller in the confined space, its pale eyes burning. David screamed and fired wildly. Bullets tore into the beast's flesh, spraying black ichor across the walls, but the monster only staggered. It let out a guttural roar and slammed its claw straight through David's chest, pinning him to the wall. His scream ended in a choking gurgle. Chloe didn't hesitate. With a snarl, she charged, machete flashing. She hacked deep into the beast's arm, slicing muscle and tendon. For a moment, it recoiled, ichor splattering across her face. "See, it bleeds!" she shouted. But the triumph lasted only seconds. The beast swung its massive claw, catching Chloe mid-scream. Her body split in half from shoulder to hip, blood spraying the walls in a wide arc. Her machete clattered to the floor, slick with gore. Ethan froze, paralyzed, watching his friends shredded like paper. Then instinct took over. He dropped his rifle, spun, and bolted through the back exit of the armory, leaving the weapons behind. His panicked breaths echoed down the corridor as the creature's roar followed him into the dark. Ethan stumbled through the dark corridors, his breaths ragged, his hands still slick with Chloe's blood. He turned a corner and nearly crashed into Tyler, Jessica, Claire, Sarah, and Ryan, bloodied, trembling, but alive. The reunion was short-lived. Their faces told the same story. Everyone else was gone. Jessica grabbed Ethan's shoulders. "Where's Chloe? Where's David?" Her eyes begged for an answer. Ethan's mouth opened, but no words came. His silence said enough. Jessica's face paled and she stumbled back against the wall. Sarah shook her head, whispering a broken prayer. Ryan spat blood onto the floor, his ribs clearly cracked from the creature's earlier blow. "We're screwed. Every time we split, it picks us off. It's not hunting us randomly. It's cornering us." "Then we fight," Tyler barked, though his voice cracked. His bravado was thinning, stretched thin over raw fear. "We can't just keep running like rats." Jessica glared at him, tears welling in her eyes. "Fight? You saw what it did to Marcus, to Emily, to Chloe. You want us to die faster?" Ryan snarled, gripping a bent metal pipe with bloodied hands. "At least I'll die swinging." His voice was hoarse, desperate. The argument was cut short by a low rumble, the sound of the creature's claws dragging across the walls again, closer this time. The steel wall buckled, then tore open with a shriek of bending metal. The beast burst through, eyes glowing like pale lanterns. Ryan let out a war cry and charged, swinging the pipe with every ounce of strength. It didn't matter. The monster's claw sized across his body, tearing him clean in half. Blood sprayed across the group as Ryan's remains hit the floor. Jessica shrieked, pulling Claire away as the others bolted. Sarah tripped on the slick ground, her scream tearing through the hallway. "Help me," she cried, clawing at the floor as the beast seized her leg. Ethan looked back, frozen in horror. Jessica tried to grab her hand, but Tyler yanked her away. "Leave her," he shouted. Sarah's scream rose to a shrill peak before it was cut short, dragged into the darkness. They ran on, broken and terrified, the beast's roar shaking the corridor behind them. The surviving four, Ethan, Jessica, Claire, and Tyler, burst into a massive chamber deep underground. The air was stale, thick with dust and the copper stink of blood. At the far end stood a ladder bolted into the wall, reaching up toward a circular hatch. For the first time, hope flickered in their eyes. "There!" Jessica screamed, sprinting forward. "That's the way out!" Her voice cracked, halfway between joy and hysteria. Tyler shoved past Ethan, grabbing the ladder with shaking hands and climbing fast, his boots clanging against the metal rungs. Claire scrambled behind him, sobbing, her hands slipping on the slick blood that coated her palms. Ethan stayed back, rifle in hand, scanning the shadows. Every breath came out in ragged gasps. "Come on," he urged, "we're almost there." The hatch above groaned as Tyler forced it open. A rush of night air poured in, cool and damp, washing the stench of the underground away. Claire's laughter broke through her sobs. "We're saved! We're actually saved!" But Ethan froze. The shadows at the edge of the chamber shifted. The scraping sound returned, louder, closer, echoing like nails dragged across bone. Jessica clutched his arm. "No, no, not now!" The creature burst from the dark, faster than before, its pale body twisting unnaturally as it lunged. Its claw caught Jessica mid-scream, severing her head from her body in a spray of blood. Her body crumpled before Ethan's feet. Claire shrieked and scrambled higher. Tyler reached the top, daylight spilling over his face. "Claire, hurry!" he shouted, stretching his hand down. She reached for him just as the beast's claw tore through her spine. Her eyes went wide, her mouth forming a silent scream before she went limp, falling back into the chamber with a sickening thud. Tyler froze at the hatch, staring down at the carnage, his face a mask of horror. "No, no, no, no!" he stammered. Ethan aimed the rifle, firing round after round. The bullets tore chunks of black ichor from the creature, but it only roared louder, barreling toward him. Ethan screamed, pulling the trigger until the gun clicked empty. In one blur of motion, the creature's claw ripped through his chest. He crumpled, blood bubbling from his lips, his body twitching as it hit the floor. Tyler screamed in terror, scrambling out of the hatch into the night. He staggered onto the forest floor, gulping in the cool air, laughter breaking into sobs. For a brief moment, he believed he was free. Then the earth shook beneath him. The creature erupted from the hatch, moving faster than anything human. Tyler's scream tore through the forest as its claws impaled him, lifting him into the air before ripping him apart in one clean strike. His remains scattered across the grass as silence reclaimed the night. Deep below, alarms still wailed in the underground lab. echoing endlessly as if mocking with students who had dared disturb what should have stayed buried. And that was only the beginning. The hunt has started, and the nightmare is far from over. If this story chilled you, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with a friend who dares to watch. Then drop a comment below. Would you have gone down those stairs or stayed by the fire? Your choice might decide if you survive the next episode.